Hey guys, we're going to talk about landscapes really quick. The idea here is a beautiful painting, and what you're going to do is you're going to find your own beautiful painting, work of art, photography, whatever you want from an actual museum. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But landscapes have certain parts to create depth, meaning like how far they go back, or at least how far they appear to go back. So now just the idea is there's that back part called, well, background. And then in between the up close and personal and the background is the middle ground that's in between. And then now don't laugh, you'll understand here in just a second. Boom. Foreground. Okay, now if my grandparents weren't there, and that's my grandparents, like an actually old picture of my grandparents, and I talk about my heritage usually when you do immigration day and stuff at school. But the idea is my grandma's where I get my red hair, and my grandfather's where I get my beautiful French last name. We actually say Corriveau, but it's actually not pronounced that way. My grandmother, when she met my grandfather, he spoke French and barely any English, and she was from Southern Illinois, so she had an accent. And well, she could never pronounce his name right. It's Corvu, and she could never pronounce it. She had her Southern accent. She said Corriveau. She married him, took his last name, and still can't pronounce it right. I mean, love my grandma to death, but just letting you know, Corriveau is actually not how you say it, but that's okay. That's what we go by now. Now, if they aren't there, the boats and the water would be the foreground. Now, I am going to put them in here. I know it's a photo in a painting, but I made them smaller. As things go farther away, they appear to get smaller, just like way back in these are like two people in a boat. So it goes way back there. Now, I also did some other things. I made them the size of the other people around there. I'm going to plop them over here now. Now they're on the party barge. And I did something so it looks like they're actually on the barge as opposed to just a picture stuck on there. I cropped them. I made it look like they're actually in that window, if you will, behind the actual posts. Okay. Now, this is a beautiful Monet. And my grandparents are in the foreground now, and obviously they're going to move back, boom, back to the middle ground. They are on the bridge. And now, in order to make this happen, there's multiple things that could be done. Obviously, I could just crop out where the bridge is. I could cut that out of my grandparents' picture. I could copy or paint over my grandparents' picture with making look like the bridge is actually on top of them. Now, in this one, there's definitely a background, but there's not something that the first one had. Okay, the background's way back there, and you know where the middle ground is. Grandparents in the foreground. Now we're going to go back all the way to this one. If you look at this one actually has a horizon line. Okay, it's way back here. It's where the sky meets the ground. I mean, technically the Earth's horizon line would be down here, but you get the idea of where the sky meets things. And what that does is send it way back. It gives it more depth compared to this one, which doesn't have as much depth because you can't see the horizon line. Okay. Now, this one's awesome. Edward Hopper. This is in the Chicago Art Institute. But grandparents definitely go in there. There happens to be a redhead and a gentleman already at the counter. And I put these in here. Now, I took my time. I cropped them so they're behind the counter, but I also cropped and cut out these so they're in front of my grandfather. And that's layering. That's another way to create depth. As soon as you put one thing in front of another thing, it automatically, even if it's on a black screen, creates depth. Okay, now my grandparents are creepers in the back window. It happens, but it shows it's cropped, it's hidden back there. Now, what you're going to do is get some cartoon characters, and you are going to put them into famous works of art, showing me background, foreground, and middle ground, showing me layering, creating depth. Like this, you can actually see that Patrick is in front of the blue Angry Bird. That's already showing depth just by layering like that. Now, where can you find famous works of art? You need to actually go to a museum. You need to find the name of the artist and the title of the work. Don't just pick Starry Night. Seriously, it's been done. Okay, you need to actually go to a museum and find that. Then you can go to Google and search for like an actual work of art, like with the title of the piece and the artist's name. And then you can find a large image to, well, digitally manipulate. Okay. Now realize that the internet lies. I'm just letting you know that. Some of you don't know this. I used to be a web designer, and you can put coding in the back of a web page that brings up keywords. When you type in keywords in Google for search engines, stuff like that, it'll bring up web pages based on those keywords. Now, if you know anything about coding, you can actually get those lines in. And so anybody that types in famous landscapes, your stuff could come up. That also means that some weird dude out in Idaho that makes glitter crayon art, knows how to code a web page, and he types that in. So every time you search famous landscapes, his garbage, and that just doesn't work. Okay, so that's not allowed. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's probably not that bad, but you need to find a famous work of art. You need to know the title and the artist. You're going to put a very small line of text on Adobe Photoshop Mix on the bottom saying your name, the original artist's name, and the title of it. You can put the date of the work too, if you would like. But I want you to go crazy with it. I want you to like create reflections and show some cool stuff, show layering, foreground, middle ground, background. Be creative with it. Make sure they're like hiding behind people and stuff like that. Okay. Good luck. Make some awesomeness, and then we're gonna share these out with everybody.